Okay, in the last video we kind of started with an introduction of how to calculate the slope of a line, and what we saw was that the slope is really just calculated as being a fraction, where the top part is the change in the y values between the two different points that we're given over the change in the x values. Also written as we said, you can think about it as how much did we go up or down versus how much we went left or right, or rise over run. Okay, so let's do a couple more problems that involve slightly different techniques. I want to do a quick refresher over, let's say I gave you two different points, right? Let's say, how about this? Let's say I gave you the points -2 and 10, and the other set of points would be -2 and -15. Let's just try this for a second. Okay, so, and the question is, given these two different points, what would be the slope of the line that connects them? So if I, again, and as we go through this video, hopefully you'll start to see that you don't necessarily have to sketch out the actual graph. We can just use the formulas or the methods that we were talking about earlier to just take the points and solve for them. But I did want to sketch this one out just so you can see what's going on here. Okay, so let's say, oh gosh. All right, again, kind of get used to my horrible sketch skills. But let's say, okay, so here, let's say we had some sort of x-axis and some sort of y-axis, and let's plot these points. Okay, so as a quick review, remember, the first number with the points always refers to where that point is on the x-axis, okay? And the second one talks about, or tells you where it is on the up and down, or the y-axis. So for our first point, we need to have the x value to be -2, so let's -2, let's say, and y value is 10. So let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, so we got a point there, and we have a point here, and where they connect would be roughly right there. Okay, so there's our first point. Probably should switch up colors a little bit. And then the next point is going to be also the x is -2, but where the y value is -15. So let's see. Okay, so we already have -2 on the x-axis, but then we're supposed to have a corresponding -15 with the y. I'm not going to sketch all that out. You can fill in the blank, blah, blah, blah. Da, 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 da. Let's just say it's down here. Okay, so that's -15. Okay, so this would be the corresponding point right there. All right? So we have these two different points. One that matches with -2 on the x-axis and +10 on the y-axis, and the other point is -2 on the x-axis and -15 on the y-axis. All right, so now here's the question. What would be the slope? I'm going to change colors again. What would be the slope of those, oh gosh, of those 2 points right there? Okay. So look, again, as a refresher, remember the slope means it's a fraction where how much we changed in the y direction from one point to another over is divided by the change from the x values from one point to another. Okay, so again, our 2 points are here and here. So let's calculate the change in the y value from all. All right, so this shouldn't be too hard. So let's say we start here, and we went all the way up to there. So think about it. We started at -15, and we ended up going all the way up to +10. You could literally count all the jumps, but remember what we said. Change in y can be calculated as where we ended up, which would be +10, minus where we started from, which was -15. So that is going to be equal to, well, again, 10 minus a negative. Whenever you subtract a negative, that really works out to just being a positive. So we're really just doing this. We're adding 10 plus 15 is equal to 25. Okay, so that is our, to use the fancy expression, that is our delta y. That is our change in y. We went up 25 jumps to get from -15 to 10. Okay? All right, so that, check. We got that one done. All right, but now let's try, what was our change in the x? How much did we move left or right? All right, well, let's just think about this. Here, our initial point, we're at -2. And we ended up also at -2. So how much did we change? How much did we move either left or right? Well, the answer is we didn't move at all. The change is 0. We stayed right where we were. And you could, prove it, right? Because, well, we ended up at -2, so that was our ending position minus where we started from, which was also -2. That is just the same thing as -2 plus 2. That is just 0. So our change in x is 0. Okay, so now this is where we have to kind of be careful. This creates a problem when we're trying to find the slope. Because remember, the slope is a fraction like this. Our change in y over our change in x. So we calculated our change in y is 25. So let's put that down. So let's just put, okay, so our slope is equal to 25 divided by our change in x, which is 0. All right, now here's where we have a problem. Anything, any number divided by 0, by definition, is undefined. Meaning, well, literally, there's no definition, right? In mathematics, this doesn't really make any sense. And maybe in another video I'll explain why, but just for now, the takeaway is that if you ever have something where you have 0 in your denominator, it ends up being 0, you basically say there's no answer. It's undefined. So we could really technically say there is no slope for this. I know that sounds a little bit weird, but nevertheless, get used to that because that's kind of a classic trap question on some of these exams, is that they'll give you something and they'll ask you what the slope is, and they're kind of hoping you'll say something like 0 or, no. If something is divided by 0, there is no answer. Undefined. No slope. Okay, one more quick problem, and I think that'll do it for now. But let's try this. Another possibility could be that I would tell you what the slope is, and I would, okay, let me just give you an example. Let's say I gave you these points. Let's say I said, okay, I have these 2 points here. So there's a point on when x is 2 and y is 6, and there's another point when I don't tell you what the x value is, but I do tell you that the y value is 2. Okay? And then I tell you, all right, and I said the slope of these points is equal to 4/7. And then I'm going to ask you, okay, what is that missing x value? What is that? That x has to be what in order for this to be true? Well, let's just think about this for a minute. This would be hard to kind of graph because while I could graph that point, I really can't graph this one because I don't know what the x value is. Okay, so if we try to do our little sketch of plotting these points and so on, it's not going to work out so well. So, but remember, let's think about how we find the slope. Slope is just the change in y, or your starting point, starting y minus your, actually, excuse me, I had that backwards. Wait, just ignore what I said there. Whoops, erase all that. It's your end y minus your starting y. Okay? So let's just calculate that for a minute. So my end y minus my start y. Well, let's think. Well, let's just pick one. Let's say this is our ending. Let's put that. Let's say that's the end point and this is the starting point. Okay? So let's see. Well, what's my end y? Well, that's 6 minus 2. So the change went, if I started at my y value at 2 and I went up all the way up to 6, the total change was 6 minus 2, which of course is just equal to 4, which matches with what we got right here. Okay, so we got that. Check, check. All right, but now let's think about this. Well, if we ended up at 2 for the x value, what must we have started with in order for that to be 7? So think about it like that. Hold on, let me change colors again. So again, the change in x is exactly the same thing as the change in y. It's going to be our end x minus our start x. So what we ended up with, our x value, minus wherever we began. Well, let's think about what we know. We know that we ended up at 2, so that's going to be 2 minus something. We don't know what that is. I'm just going to put question mark. But we know it has to be equal to 7. So let's think about this. 2 minus what makes 7? Well, one way that we could solve for it You can think about it a little bit, but I'm going to do this algebraically. We need to find this thing. So the unknown number. So we need to get rid of the 2, right? We want to solve for something, we need it all by itself. This is ultimately what we're looking for. We want to end up with something is equal to, well, blah blah blah, whatever. We got to figure this out. Okay, so how do we solve this? Well, let's start by getting rid of the 2. We can subtract 2 from both sides. Okay, there's a start. And that would mean 2 minus 2, well, that's just 0. So we're left with negative unknown number is equal to 7 minus 2 is equal to 5. Okay? Well, last thing that we have to do is we need to get rid of the negative. We can divide both sides by negative 1. And that cancels off our negative, leaving us with unknown number is equal to 5 divided by negative 1. Well, that, of course, 5 divided by negative 1, that's just negative 5. So the unknown number, the x value that we were looking for here, has to be negative 5. And that should hopefully make sense. Think about it. Okay, so let me just plot that point for a second. So if x was equal to negative 5, that is our starting point, and we ended up with at positive 2, right? Because I'm just looking at these two things right here. The negative 5 and the 2. Well, is that, remember, we were supposed to have 7 jumps? Well, is that 7 jumps? If you think about it, absolutely it is, right? So we need to go 5 jumps, blah, 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 to get to 0, and then 2 more to get to 2. So if we started at negative 5, we ended up at positive 2, that's 7 jumps. So the answer is, for the missing x value, is going to be equal to negative 5. Hopefully this was helpful.